Batman Urban Legends issue 2 is the now ongoing anthology book with multiple ongoing stories. I was going to read you all the story credits just now because there's a nice handy credits page that I'm not going to come back to later, so I was going to read you them all. So we got the Red Hood story, 2 of 6. Chip Zdarsky writing that with Eddie Barrows and Eber Ferreira and Julio Ferreira on the art. We have an article
and Marcus Toe as well on the art as well.
Oh, the flashback. Quite right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Oracle and Ghost in the Machine. Cecil Castellucci writing with Margaret Savage on the art. We have got the next part of the Outsider story, which is part 2 of 3. That's Brandon Thomas writing with Max Dunbar on art. And we have the Grifter story, which is part 2 of 5, which is Matthew Rosenberg writing with Ryan Benjamin on art. So that's what's coming up. First things first, actually, before we get to them, is that I actually read like 2 pages of the Oracle story and then realized it was a follow-up to the run that we all dropped, and I just didn't read the rest of it. So
okay,
I didn't read that one.
I read it all. We'll discuss.
Sure. Yeah, you can say what it is, but I like a couple of pages. I was like, oh my god, I don't like this. I like how it looks, and then I realized.
Oh, I'm shocked. Pete didn't like the artist. He hated in Future State.
Yeah.
Oh, is this the Supergirl artist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you go.
For me, the art was the strongest part of that, but it's very silly, so we'll get there.
I spent most of it just kind of enjoying the art. I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you much about the story overall.
That's because there was not much there.
Well, let's start with Red Hood then. The last part ended with him killing the father of the boy that he has in his care, and it being this kind of it's shockingly good. The last like 4 or 5 pages of that Red Hood story last month was fantastic. And
then he proceeds to have a basic panic attack because he just was like, "Oh man, I wasn't thinking. This kid's an orphan now. Maybe I can't take him on." Like he's having an existential crisis, and yeah,
it's like, "Am I Bruce now?"
Yeah. I become what I hated.
Yeah, and he has the flashback, of course, to when his mother was doing deals with a drug dealer, presumably selling herself for them. It's kind of an implication. It doesn't get too into it, but it's kind of the implication. And young Jason pushes this guy down the stairs. Now, it doesn't actually say that he killed him, but
I think there's a reasonable assumption, though, given that the issue starts with him talking about all the people he's killed and how he, it's been a pretty frequent occurrence for him.
I think it's kind of a big deal, though, that it's suggesting that he actually did kill someone before he even met Batman.
Here's the thing. He might have killed him by pushing him down the stairs, but I don't think the intent was to kill. The intent was to hurt.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't going for a kill shot. He pushed him out of anger. He just happened to fall badly.
The dude did pull a knife on him, so...
Oh, you suggesting this drug dealer isn't an upstanding citizen with a...
Yeah.
What you're doing there, Matt, is you are defending Red Hood's very existence.
I am, because here's the thing, guys. They keep giving us good Red Hood stories. I can no longer say I hate the Red Hood as a concept. So if DC wants to stop...
Turns out you might have just hated Lobdell.
Maybe. Because I didn't mind when they brought him back, right? And that was Judd Winnick.
Mm-hmm.
Judd Winnick did the what was that called? It was the miniseries that took place in between his death and when he returned. And it involved Talia and the League of Shadows and all this stuff. That was good.
There's also the animated movie, Under the Red Hood.
Yep.
Which Winnick also wrote. What's really fascinating about that is he wrote it without rereading,
right?
Because he wrote the comics that's based on, so he did it without rereading what his script was, or any of the finished work. So you get like this really tight adaptation without any of the
streamlined.
Yeah.
So him, I just feel like Jason's needs to be enough away from everyone else, and here Zdarsky really does show how he's different than the rest of the Bat family. He really is the black sheep, but he still cares for people, right? Like his whole point of the existential crisis here was like, okay, I got mad, I killed this guy, but now I just put this kid into the system, which was really bad for me, right? So,
he's not a
total dirtbag.
He has a line where he's like, wait, I just wait for like a billionaire to adopt him.
Yeah.
Like, he has a line like along those lines. So there's a scene where Batman is chasing down some of these thugs in a van, And I have to say, from an art perspective, my favorite sequence in the whole book is how it plays with like Batman scaring the shit out of these guys in the van.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, the way it appears down the street after they get out of the van, and then, you know, the shadows sort of come in because the lights turn off. And then the following couple of pages where Batman's like, you know, coming out of the darkness behind them as they're trying to fire a gun. This is a really like good like 3 or 4 pages of just like a Batman attacking some criminals like stuff. This is just really solid stuff. Really liked it.
The layouts are really cool because they play with the bat symbol, right? Like
lots of off angles as well to give us some motion.
Yeah, and then the guy takes a swing and says, "You don't scare me," and Batman pulls the grapple gun on him. And I'm like, wait, where did we just jump to? This is not bad. And then he goes, "How about now?" And he's basically got the guy's leg, Wile E. Coyote style.
Yeah.
You know,
ties up to the lamppost.
Yeah. So, all very fun, classic Batman stuff.
Yeah, all very good. And you know, this is what he ends up calling Oracle. The information here is interesting, though. It's playing into the ongoing stuff in that the thugs, because these used to be Scarecrow guys, and they claim that Scarecrow's dead. So this is playing into the belief that Scarecrow's dead. So it's a nice little tie-in continuity-wise to the main Batman book. But it mentions that they're working for Freeze, but they say that they're not even doing anything villainous. They're just getting these groceries.
Yeah.
Which I love the idea that Batman picks all these guys up, and all they were doing was going out and getting his lunch.
Freeze can't go out and get his own food. Not in that big bulky suit.
That's true.
I assumed, honestly, home delivery would have been the way to go. But if you've got goons, why not make the most of them?
Use them.
Well, yeah, because you have to pay your goons. Well, I suppose you do. That's why they're goons.
Yeah.
But if you're paying the goons, the point is, though, is you're paying the goons anyway. You don't have to pay extra for delivery. Is what I'm saying.
Are you saying the goons are salaried?
Yeah.
I'm saying they're getting paid, at least paid per day.
I thought goons were paid on a per job basis.
Well, here's the thing. He says, "What's he up to?" He goes, "Honestly, nothing. He's sending us out for groceries, but it's work." You know, he does the whole Flintstones.
Yeah.
You know, so I think they're salaried, right? Because if he's not salaried, they don't have to take the grocery job. You know?
Yeah, I presume that he keeps them on retainer pays them a set amount for menial tasks like this. Because if you had to pay them individually for each task like this, it'd cost them a fortune. It wouldn't be worth it.
I want to revisit the remember the app that was like hire a goon.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I want that. Like you can advance and now you're in a salaried position. You're an upper level goon. I want this book.
Alright, so what you're saying, this is like Uber, but instead of paying for a random person to be a taxi driver, you're paying for them to just go pick up your food.
Well,
which I guess
it's kind
of Uber Eats.
It's like
but I mean groceries though. I'm not talking about takeaway. I'm talking about go pick up my, like bread, fish, and fruit.
It's Uber hench.
So he talks to Oracle on the comms though, and they talk about the Jason situation. The kid still wants to play with Jason's mask, which just makes him feel terrible. He's going through the whole thing. We get the rest of the flashback, which we already kind of mentioned. And, Batman, of course, comes to see Jason. And I kind of like this thing here where Jason, he could sort of stop and explain and sort of say exactly what happened, but he kind of acts in character for Jason and just gets angry and tells Batman he's being, too sanctimonious. And I'm like, Jason, there's actually a lot to go to this story that led to that moment, and the fact that there's a kid involved, and why you got angry, but he isn't trying to explain anything. He just starts giving the regular Jason Todd speech to Batman that he always gives these days, and it's kind of like, so you see why Batman doesn't trust him. But I do like that in the narration, Jason acknowledged it and says, I really shouldn't be saying this, but I can't help it. Like, I know this is not the course of action. And the powerful ending we have in this issue, which is not as powerful, I think, as some of the scenes at the end of the last issue, but is the kid actually comes in when they start fighting, and actually basically gets in front of Jason and tells Batman, "No, Batman, he's a good guy," and that's kind of your dramatic ending. So, which is powerful. It's powerful.
I think it's a really solid issue. I think the biggest problem is Barrows struggles with kids. It just looks like a short man.
Yeah.
Like Matt?
Shorter. I mean, some of them, I'm looking at them.
Like it's not all the some of them are better than others, but like at the end where he's jumping in front and he's he's got his arm up, and it's like doing it just looks like a short guy. It doesn't look like a kid, which is kind of my point.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's because kids have different proportions, right, in their body. It's not just that they're shorter; they are differently proportioned.
Big heads, small necks.
Yeah. Like, there are these things, and it just doesn't look right here.
Yeah. The artist was Barrows is a very dependable kind of artist. It's never. I don't think we ever rank him in the upper tier of, the ones we always praise and give best of the week to and all that. But a very dependable sort of B+ kind of artist, I'd say. I think
it's hurt a little bit with the fact that I think Marcus Toe is better. It kind of outshines him a little bit in the same issue.
But I think the dramatic end is really good. The idea of this essentially this new orphan sticking up for Jason to Batman sort of adds a bit of a wrench in the usual flow of this dynamic, which is I think we're all kind of praying for a little bit, because when the conflict starts and Batman's yelling, "Oh, you killed in my city," and Jason's just saying, "You're all high and mighty, you prick," and they're just fighting, and it's the same old thing. I think you're hoping for something to change the narrative because it's like the same old story. So when this kid gets in the middle of it, not only is this kid being kind of this dramatic center point of the whole thing thus far, he now becomes this kind of literal change in the dynamic between the two characters, where maybe Bruce and Jason will even bond to some extent over this, because now Jason's got an orphan that he cares about. No,
because I do think that the kid's mom's gonna pull through.
But
they're gonna help her not to create the same cycle that created.
Eventually, Matt. But until that happens, they're not going to know for a while, and I think they're going to milk
that's true.
During that time. I think that's when the bonding.
There
will happen. But it's good stuff. I mean, we were impressed with that first part. I was
gonna say, because in their fight, he says that Bruce is a failed parent, which I have many issues with Bruce, but that's not one of them. Dick and Tim seem pretty well adjusted for being heroes.
I think it's interesting though that Jason feels that way.
Yeah,
they didn't try and adapt to him.
Right.
I don't know. I think there's something there that you could criticize Bruce for.
I definitely understand where he's coming from on that one. Like, I get where Jason's rage comes from. And just as someone that has a difficult relationship with my own dad, him automatically, being like, "Oh, you got to be let in. You're a vampire. I didn't invite you."
So
just
some kids
starting off hostile.
Some kids are just more of a hassle.
Yeah.
More of a handful. That's maybe more better phrase.
Yeah.
More of a handful, and Jason falls out of that cat. It's kind of like saying the customer's always right. That's all fine and well, but some customers aren't.
The customer's an a-hole.
In my experience, most customers are wrong.
That's true. I actually agree with that, but
even when I'm the customer, I'm probably wrong.
Yeah. Well, you're Conroe. You're always wrong.
All right, what we rating the Red Hood story?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Connor?
Yeah, it's an 8 from me.
Yeah, I'm also giving it the straight 8. Nice and easy, that one. Then it's the Oracle story, Ghost in the Machine, which I didn't read past the first couple of pages because I was sort of like, it was referencing things, and then I realized, oh wait, this is Castellucci. She was literally the one who was on the run that I abandoned, and I was like, oh, I don't think there's much point in me reading this now, and I'm not enjoying what I've read so far, and I don't like the art, so I just was okay, next story. So,
Connor, did you read it?
I technically yes, but I kind of, after about 3 pages, ended up kind of skimming.
Okay.
Not intentionally, just I found myself like just looking at the art and following it, and I like the bit where where she's at the part of the chess table and kind of talking to the various bats and like, I couldn't tell you what happened.
That was kind of. I was gonna say that's kind of what I did as well, in the sense that I read like 2 pages and then I noticed I was just kind of skimming the next couple of pages, and I went, you know what, there's no point there. I'll just stop.
Yeah. So a lot like Castellucci's back row run, it's not like completely terrible. It's just very. It feels off. So there's cool things in here, like her wanting to become Oracle and like her basically being the dispatch for the bat teams. That's a great concept. It's just the villain she's fighting is Vi Ross, whose actual name is like Vivian something, and she was an epidemiologist but also a computer person. Where you're just like, all right, you're putting a hat on a hat at this point. Her name was Vivian Rossdale, aka Vi Ross, and she's going through and infecting Gotham with these little, like incidental things that Barbara ends up, stopping. But in doing so, she decides to create basically a mobile clock tower in her tracksuit, which I'm just like, what are we doing? This is just silly. Like, smart glasses. Okay, it's Batgirl. I can, she was Batgirl once. I can see that. Earbud for communications. Hidden pin button microphone. Telescoping antenna doubles as a cane or a weapon if needed. All right, so now we're turning her James Bond too. Like,
none of these individually sound like a big deal, but the fact that they're making a point of like listing all this out is what makes it feel a bit silly.
That was the page where I checked out, because I read the first 3 pages, more or less, and then I got to that page, and it was here's all the things on like various bits. It's all like the bubbles, but it's done in the style of the circuitry behind it, and I just love liking all that.
Yeah. Having just skimmed through it, the chess stuff with the Bat family members does seem like a fun idea that maybe could be used again in a different fashion by someone else. But
because she's looking through her smart goggles, right? Her glasses, and she's looking at them like they're the pieces on the chessboard, and they're sending them to these places that Virus has hit before, and it all comes down to floppy disks. And she manipulates. She's sitting on the bus, and with her super suit, she manipulates all of the green lights through this to get somewhere quicker. And I was like, all I could think of was, well, you just messed up traffic for everybody else. Like, it's very inconvenient. But
I will agree with that, but she didn't do it unsafely. She didn't put anyone at risk. She still just changed the lights.
Right, but I don't know if you've ever been driving and ambulance comes through. Yeah.
It's
and
annoying.
Then it throws off everything, and you're stuck at that light now for another 6 minutes as it resets.
I'm not disputing that. It is definitely self.
This is sounding like
there's a better reason for it, but
this is sounding like the hit cult 80s film Rage War, where the guy's built a computer in his watch that he can change the traffic lights as he's jogging through at the start of the film. The actual premise of the film is that he ends up getting invaded by like an entity that puts him into a virtual world and forces him to fight for his fiancée in different settings. I don't know why I'm telling you all
Tron?
this.
Shit Tron is what I was just gonna say.
Yeah. He fights for the users?
it's more like his computer's rebelling. It's kind of anyway, I don't know why I'm telling you all this. It's just it made me think of it with the traffic light thing.
So basically, she figures out that it has something to do with the banking, that she's using these floppy disks and other solid state digital storage to basically throw the bank into chaos. So she gets there, stops Virus, who has a different she's dressed as like a technician whose name is Pat Hogan, which becomes Pathogen. And I'm just like, okay, this story is just silly. If it wasn't an annual, I'd it's whatever. But in something like this, I'm glad it's just a one-off.
Yeah.
I am also glad this was not one of something.
Yeah.
And it's just oh no, we get something else next time.
Yeah, it's just 10 or 15 pages, whatever it is, and
the art and the colors, and I like Savage a lot. So that all works. Like the layouts are fine, and I just the story I'm reading it and I was just like, okay, this is why I kind of dropped Batgirl. Like we weren't as excited anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to like this because I saw Savage's name right at the start, and I was like, "Ooh, hello!" and I enjoy the art a lot. But yeah, no, I couldn't do it.
Into the donation bin.
All right, you want to rate the Oracle story?
I'm going to give this a 5.5. That's mainly just for the art.
That's fair. We have the Outsider story next, which, if you remember last time, Metamorpho was like the tower.
Which honestly is my biggest thing from the start. I struggled to remember last time. I remember enjoying it, but I struggled to remember the details of this more than any other story that especially in this book.
See, I didn't, and I kind of wish that we got a little bit more of a resolution there, but I really like this chunk.
Because this opens with Japan that same night, and I was like,
right,
that same night as what exactly?
I remember pretty quickly. As soon as like, you can see Metamorpho at the bottom of the page, and as soon as you turn and you get the 2-page layout where Jefferson's dragging him, I was like, oh yeah, it was the building, and like, you know, they're up against I don't know if we knew last part that it was the mother-in-law, effectively, you know, Katana's mother-in-law.
No, and so that's where I'm trying to, you know, I wish. So I know Talking Superman, friend of the show, is a big Katana fan. So if he could let us know if this is all new stuff or if this is, you know, this is from her origin. It really adds a layer to Katana.
So yeah, Katana's with her mother-in-law, and basically the gist of this is that her mother-in-law is like, okay, my son's soul is no longer in the sword, and she basically suspects that the soul pissed off because Katana's got feelings for Jefferson, and she's pissed about this. You know.
Now, I don't want to argue ancient Japanese magic with someone that apparently is a practitioner of ancient Japanese magic.
Yes, and looks ancient.
Yeah, we don't know if that's why. Maybe the soul has found, like, you know, I don't know much about Soul Taker, but, you know, maybe it's, you know, his soul doesn't need to be in the sword anymore. We don't know.
Or
you know?
Hear me out. Maybe she's right.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I feel like that would be more interesting to me, is that he hypothetically here has made the choice to not be in the sword, to like he's chosen to move on. It's like, hey, you found someone new, you don't need me anymore.
Yeah, that's what
not in a malicious way.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe this is actually more of a the soul's moved on to let her move on kind of thing. Like, it's more of a positive thing. Yeah. So we'll see where they go with it. There's only one part left. I did like the visual of Black Lightning using Metamorpho as like a moth-winged kind of flying device.
I like the choice to be like, I was gonna say butterfly, but moth. So that sort of wing as opposed to birds.
Yeah. It was just a neat touch. And almost immediately we're at the cliffhanger where they're fighting, you know, the mother-in-law's army, because they're coming for Katana. Metamorpho duplicates to take them on, and it's a nice page, that last page where you've got the symmetry of like the lightning coming from Black Lightning's kick to the fire coming from the other dude's kick, and it looks good.
It's very Street Fighter to me.
I can see that.
I did think it ended a bit abruptly. Not necessarily this particular page, and there's a final last page. Just I felt all of a sudden, I'm at the end now. I didn't build up to the end.
The first part did that as well, so I guess it's maybe just the flaw of this 3-part story is that I assume the last part's going to feel a bit more final because it's the last one. But
I would hope so. Yeah. It feels like maybe they're like artificially having to split up an issue that maybe they had it written or more or less in mind for like one oversized issue, like an annual size, whatever, and they've kind of got to artificially add in these cliffhangers. I wouldn't surprise, because obviously the first and last story are full-sized issues, so they effectively could have just been planned miniseries that became part of this book. But it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the stuff in the middle stuff that we're getting is repackaged things that were maybe intended for other formats in some way, at least for the first little while, and then maybe they'll do specific stuff for it. It's kind of like if you listen to previously, me and Pete have been reading Justice League Power Rangers by Tom Taylor and Stephen Byrne, and we were speculating that may have been like just a straight to graphic novel originally, because it has some really strange issue cut-off points where it's just like, this is the end of the issue now.
Yeah, because usually, I mean, I always want the covers to be there in the trades when I read things, because I think it's good chapter breaks. I like having the covers there also just for, you know, preserving the experience of seeing the cover, because the covers are good usually, right? And if they're not good, I want to see that they're not good. I want to have that opinion. But usually, even when they're not, you can usually kind of still tell roughly when you're at a final page. I was struggling. Like when I was reading Justice League Power Rangers, I accidentally read like half of the next issue because I didn't realize that I'd ended the issue yet. Because it just didn't have that big final. I
think it was the end of issue 3 came about 4 pages after what you would think was the final page.
Yeah, if you were just reading it blind, yeah.
It was bizarre, and again, like the issues was good. Still, it's Tom Taylor and Stephen Byrne. What do you expect? But just weirdly paced in terms of single issues.
Yeah. So yeah, there's not a whole lot to add about the Outsiders thing. Obviously, the main beat is the thing about the soul leaving the sword. But other than that, just some fun.
It's solid.
One of the things I appreciate about Katana is I like the idea that we don't know if her husband's soul is actually in the sword or if that's just grief.
It's always been her belief, and that's kind of what we've had to go on.
Right. So the fact like the mother-in-law shows up here and it's almost like this thing where it's in fact in there, So I hope there's a twist. Yeah. I kind of hope there's a twist on it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just one of those things that can always be left up to the reader if it's there or not.
Yeah. For me, the biggest problem with this story, beyond just me forgetting the first part a lot, which I am holding against it a little bit because I don't with everything else we read. I did forget this more than anything else. Is the art, which is fine. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think the art's bad. It's perfectly acceptable. But coming off the Future State 2 issues we had of this, or whatever it was part of in Future State, which was the same writer, but the art was just so much better. This kind of still feels like a bit of a step down. It's as part of the quote-unquote same story.
I don't mind this art, though. I think
I don't mind it.
Fits the story, But, if they were trying to tell the story they were telling in Future State with this art, then yeah. But, Max Dunbar, the art here, it's very cartoony in a good way. Like it reminds me of Bruce Timm style almost.
It's why I don't want to say it's bad art, because I don't think it is. Yeah. It, at least for me, feels like it's not as good as what we had before.
Yeah. But I mean, that Future State 2-parter, like one, had like it's effectively like Katana doing John Wick style sequences through entire buildings. So
spectacular.
So the art was obviously very geared to be able to achieve that. It's just different. So, but anywho, we giving the Outsiders story, Matt?
It was an 8.
Connor?
Let's give it a 7.
Yeah, maybe 8. Just give it the 7, I think, as well. Yeah, that's good. And then the final story, of course, is the Grifter story. It gives us a sense of... We do have a flashback again, because we had the flashback last issue of Grifter and his brother. And the super villains, Mr. Freeze was there, all that stuff. And we get a flashback to him waking up in the hospital, finding out his brother's dead. This is seemingly the first time he ever met Lucius.
Yep.
I'm not sure I'm a big fan of how much this ties his origin to Lucius and, Bruce Wayne in general.
I'm gonna say I disagree with that because I do like it because now that makes him like, why would Lucius trust this mercenary so much, right? And it's because he had a hand in creating him. It's like,
I get that. I think for me it just feels more like we have to. I can feel the editorial saying we need to integrate him into the DC universe better this time around.
Right, but I'm fine with like the whole Halo thing coming out of Wayne Tech Enterprises, than some whatever Wildstorm version it was. It takes a Wildstorm concept and makes it uniquely DC, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think I actually just disagree with Connor here, and I like that it ties in more to DC continuity. I guess it makes you feel.
That's fair. I'm not saying he needs to be like 100% separate. This is the wild stuff. I don't have any attachment to that.
Right.
I could feel the editorial hand going, we need to try and do this better this time around, as opposed to when they tried in the New 52.
And I would say it's better.
I can be wrong.
But yeah, I feel like they executed it better here, just because I read that Team 7 book that they tried to.
It was terrible. Yeah, I mean,
throw Deathstroke and Dinah and her husband. What was his name? Something Lance. and it was
Mr.
it was
Lance.
ungood. Huh?
Mr. Lance.
Yeah. But anyways, but Grifter was there too, and it's just like, I don't know. But here I do like that they saved him for whatever reason with this experimental technology, and now this is what's going to lead to him becoming Grifter. And so there's always like he feels indebted to Lucius, hence why he goes and tracks down his son for him, or he works as a bodyguard for him when he's asked. And it adds another layer.
When we jump back to the present day stuff, obviously they're just hit by this garbage truck or whatever it is, and there's a tanker. So I want to say it's a cement mixer.
It's like a cement truck.
Yeah, it's like a cement mixer. But Grifter's like, right, stay in the car while I go deal with these assassins, and we get some action. There's an axe involved. It's kind of fun. The art's pretty good. Because I think the guy's face when he's swinging the axe, but he gets kind of the gun fired in his face. I think there's a nice expressive kind of just wacky action sort of vibe that it's going for that I like. My favorite thing of this whole section though is actually kind of these sort of little twists that an ambulance shows up after Lucius has already been put in an ambulance, and it turns out the first ambulance was a fake because it's just more assassins. And I think when it cut from the realization from Grifter of that to Lucius sort of realizing it and being tied in the stretcher and being just yelling for help, I thought this was darkly kind of funny. I got kind of a chuckle out of this little moment with him yelling in the ambulance. And then obviously immediately...
I need to read...
I like as well, as he's yelling for help, the driver's looking around going, no one is coming to help you, and you can see Grifter in front of him.
Yeah. Coming through the windshield right there. And then he launches from the motorcycle. But I was saying, Rosenberg doing this, I need to go check out Hawkeye Freefall, just because I've heard it.
Really good, and Schmidt, yes.
Yeah, it plays with the dark comedy a bit more with Clint. It's not so much Clint the loser that I love from the faction stuff. But
this is Clint high-functioning sociopath.
Yes, and I feel it's Grifter. There's a lot of crossover there here, So,
not too far away.
Like Pete said, it's darkly funny that they put him in a fake ambulance, and he comes and just crashes through it,
I think
John Wick style.
I think it speaks to what the vibe and tone of the book is that it doesn't play it as a sort of dark thing where Lucius is really in danger. It plays it as a fun thing. We get to laugh at him sort of panicking a little bit because we know he's about to be saved. And it kind of makes it okay in that sense.
The voice in his ear going, "Oh, you effed up," and it's with that emphasis as well, on those words, and you can see that in the lettering. It's played for laughs.
It sets you. It puts you into going into that page with that tone in mind. You don't go into it in a sense of worry. So that's good. And he's at the hospital. There's a joke with him taking all the painkillers immediately. Don't do it at home, kids.
Take one every 8 hours or whatever. He takes the whole, just chugs the bottle.
Anything else?
So this woman shows up to talk to him, and he kind of tries to flirt a little bit. There's a little bit of back and forth, and then it turns out she's actually kind of his boss. She works for Lucius. And now Grifter kind of reports to her. So we have this introduction, and she feels what's her name here? Chance Adibi. Her name's right at the end of the scene, which is why it took me a while to find it.
Yep.
But so introduce this new character. I do actually. My favorite part of this scene though is where Lucius kind of comes in and sort of gives him shit for being inappropriate because he's kind of flirting with her, and Grifter tries to say, "Oh, hey, the doctor said I might be disorientated from this," and then the next panel is just the doctor, who we've not seen for a few panels. He's just been kind of in the background, and the doctor just looks over his shoulder and goes, "No, I didn't."
Yeah,
he's like, "Come on, man, whatever happened to attorney-client privilege?"
But this is the thing. I don't really care about Grifter, but Rosenberg is doing a really good job of just making me like this character as the star of this action story that just happens to be taking place in Gotham.
Yeah, so I know there's that saying that there's no bad characters, just bad writers, right? But there's some characters I just won't ever really care about. However, I gotta give DC credit here for between Jason Todd and Grifter, two characters I was I'll check this out, but I'm not gonna. These are the two stories I'm coming back for, right?
this is the thing. What did they do? They gave it to Zarsky and Rosenberg. That's how they did this. They just gave it to two good writers.
I think it's interesting that this book is headlined. I'm going to say headline because even though this is the last story, it's the bookends. They're the two full-length issues, right? So headlined by the two traditionally Marvel writers.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like this is the playground for those Marvel writers, and then we'll get some other stuff to fill out.
I mean, I don't want to say it's a proving ground because I'm sure they know that these two can write, but it does kind of feel like a weird way that this could lead to them taking on more prominent work at DC in the future. Yeah. This is kind of their proving ground.
Especially Zdarsky, and that is not to knock Rosenberg because I'm enjoying this. I really enjoyed Hawkeye Freefall, but
I'm not just saying this because it's another Archer, but I do from this story get the idea that Rosenberg would probably be quite good in a Green Arrow book.
He has the same sort of banter as Grifter here does, especially when we're talking about in this final scene. I think Ollie has a very similar banter style.
I could see that. Zarsky, like any Bat character, really. I mean, he's already done a Bat character, but like
Zarsky can write anything, and I will read it.
They're giving him a Justice League book, like not a proper book. It's a digital.
There are reports based off of a certain site that I don't want to give too much credit to.
Yeah.
That is no longer digital first, and we will find out in the next lot of solicits that it's been moved. Yes, that's another one because we spoke about a week or two ago, I think, of some other books that moved.
Yeah.
So yeah,
intriguing.
Maybe trouble afoot on the digital front thanks to some retailers.
Yeah. So then Grifter meets up with the Toy Man in the rain. He's got his trench coat on. It's all very shady. And bizarrely, we're just talking about Red Hood's the other headline in the story. Red Hood shows up in this when they're having this meeting. They mentions that he sucks, which I thought was amusing because Red Hood. As much as I'm enjoying the main Red Hood story, my general opinion.
That's kind of our equivalent of Aquaman sucks.
Yes.
Which is like that's the general populist one, right?
Yeah.
Like, Aquaman talks to fish. Who cares?
Well,
whereas I don't think any of us have that opinion about Aquaman, but Red Hood.
Yeah, Red Hood.
Here's the difference, though. I don't remember the Zdarsky Red Hood carrying around the stupid crowbar. So I saw that here, and it triggered the bad feelings of Red Hood. Just take away the crowbar, and that's a cool scene with him, standing there like Batman almost. The lightning strike behind him.
It's very the animated series opening, especially the long shot where they're looking up at him standing up on the building. I'm picturing from the opening titles, the animated series, where the lightning flashes.
Yeah, I mean, he's not there for Grifter. He tells Grifter to stay out of it. He's looking for Toy Man. But of course, there's a fight takes place. There's a kerfuffle. But
it's a comic after all.
There's a comic book. But Nora Freeze is brought up. During
this. Favorite cold villain.
Yes. Because it got him to the 8. 2. Yes. But basically, like Grifter's like, I don't even know who that is. Who the hell's Nora Freeze? Because obviously he did meet her last issue. We saw that, but I do believe that he didn't know her name. I don't think that was it was ever properly introduced. So, like, obviously we're setting up because that was the big cliffhanger last. That was the random cliffhanger last issue. Was that Nora Freeze has turned up dead? Okay, and Mr. Freeze is just getting groceries.
That's funny.
Anyway, so the last page of this is that Red Hood wakes up after this fight because he gets knocked out. Toyman's lying there with a bullet hole in his chest, so he's dead. And there's a post-it note stuck on Red Hood's face that says, "Borrowed your gun plus $100, returned the gun, kept the money. XOXO, Superman signed it."
You gotta say that. I read this at work and I started laughing like a maniac. And someone asked me why I was laughing. I'm like, I can't explain it. But it was that image right there.
Yeah. So obviously there's a bit of a mystery as to who actually shot Toyman, right? Because that's not something that we see in the scene.
We're assuming it's not Grifter.
Yes. And we're also assuming it's not Superman, despite what the note says.
And I think we should also assume it's not Red Hood. Although we can't be sure of that.
Yes. But I know I got to the end of this issue. I got to this page and I was like, man, the turn of Superman dark. He's like stealing money and like shooting people in the chest
and borrowing guns.
I know.
Maybe it's John Kent.
Times have gotten rough. Times have gotten rough in the House of L.
No, it's Henry Cavill's Superman. 100%.
Funding the Snyder Cut broke him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a fun story. Like, you know, the grifter story is proving to be entertaining, and I'm enjoying it. And it's one of the two main selling points of getting this anthology right now. So
I would say, given the price, is fine. There are two full-length stories that I enjoy, which gets me my equivalent in dollars to buying just 2 issues. And then the extra bits, I either enjoy them or I don't. It kind of doesn't matter at that point. It's just their kind of extra fluff.
Yeah. So yeah, as long as those 2 full-sized stories keep delivering, there'll be no much reason to complain. Matt, what are you giving Urban Legends issue? Well, actually, what are you giving the Red Hood story? Or sorry, the Grifter story.
The Red Hood is the Grifter issue and 8.5.
Okay, go on.
I'll agree with the 8.5.
No, I'll just go with straight 8. It's really good. So Urban Legends 2 as a whole, Matt.
I'm gonna give it an 8, despite the Batgirl story, because I did like the art, but the story itself was so weird. But the other 3 stories are really, really good. So, you know, again, like you guys said, it's hard to be mad at the price point, but you know, checking out the comic book shop, like I can be mad at myself. You know.
Yeah. Car.
Yeah, I'm not too mad at the price point, because if this was a separate Red Hood book and a separate Grifter book, I'd have bought both of those anyway, based on this particular quality, not just in general. But these particular stories I would have done.
Yeah, and you would have tried them no matter what because of the writers that were involved.
Exactly. Yeah, because there was talent attached that I like. Overall, I'm going to give this issue an 8 because I think the Outsiders one drags it down a little bit for me. Grifter's pretty high here, so yeah, pretty around that.
Yeah, I'm giving it an 8 too. Obviously, the Oracle one was DOA for me, but really liked the first and last. Outsiders a solid, fun. So, but it's hard to fault. I mean, it's funny. There was always a risk when they announced like an $8 like recurring book like this, but it having 2 full comic book sized issues inside that were both really solid consistently is proving to be.
If like when Edge one ends first, then Grifter ends first.
Yeah.
If it's replaced by something that's not good, well, maybe even not good, but just that we don't like, that makes this book a lot tougher of a prospect.
You're relying on those middle 2 stories to keep it up a little bit. Yeah.